Thank you very much, Mr. Duca. Mr. Chairman, Honorable Ministers of Education here present, Honorable Members of Parliament, distinguished participants, distinguished luminaries in the IT industry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It's indeed a great delight for me to have the opportunity to share with you the experience that Ghana has gone through with the deployment of the end computing virtual desktop systems in our educational system. The government of Ghana is committed to a comprehensive program of rapid deployment and utilization of ICT within the education sector in order to transform the education system and thereby improve the quality of the lives of our people. The Education Ministry is therefore determined that through the deployment of ICT in education, the culture and practice of traditional memory-based learning will be transformed to education that stimulates thinking and creativity based on the challenges of the 21st century. Indeed, the ICT in education policy of the Ministry of Education, Ghana, has an overall goal, and I would like to state that next slide. I would like to state the overall goal of the ICT in education policy. It is indeed to enable graduates from educational institutions, both formal and non-formal, to confidently and creatively use ICT tools and resources to develop the requisite skills and knowledge needed to be active participants in the global economy, knowledge economy by 2015. Shall I have the next slide, please? Okay. It's important to indicate here that Ghana is pursuing a program to actually deploy ICTs throughout the educational system. And with the 2007 education reforms, the Ghana Ministry of Education set out to implement the program that we call the Ghana E-Schools and Communities Initiative within the system to take care of the deployment of ICTs at the pre-tertiary level, as well as look at the tertiary level by linking all the tertiary institutions to develop a platform for distance education. Obviously, there are some potentials and the impact that we expect. I wouldn't want, without wasting time to preach the converted, it is important to look at the impact and potentials of the integration of ICT within the education sector, which indeed cannot be overemphasized. But then we can look at the impact on quality teaching and learning, the impact on addressing issues of access, addressing issues of equity in the distribution of educational resources, including human resources, of course. Then addressing the issues of management efficiency through the use of basic spreadsheets and other class or school management software. It is also important to look at the impact on the improvement of service delivery to the public, as well as enhanced communication. Certainly, to pursue such a program of deploying ICTs within the education system, We have ICT as a subject to be learned, in the curriculum from the primary school throughout the educational ladder. And then, in doing this, there are certain challenges that we cannot simply set aside. And these challenges are quite significant for us to look at, especially when you consider the fact that we have 5.4 million kids in our 14,000 primary schools to service in terms of the provision of ICT logistics to enhance teaching and learning. Then we have also 1.34 million kids in about 8,000 junior high schools, and then over 730,000 students in 510 public senior high schools. Now, this implies that there is the need to set some educational objectives to be addressed or to be achieved. Now, certainly there are some challenges, and the first and foremost is the issue of funding and the capital-intensive nature of ICT deployments in education. Now, we point out this in relation to the choice of technology options vis-a-vis commitment to some international agreements, like the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals, where in order to ensure that children of school-going age are in school and are retained, it is important to come up with strategies to ensure that kids go to school and remain in school. And some socially related interventions have been put in place as motivation to get kids in school, like school feeding programs, the free busing of kids from their homes to school and back, free school uniforms, capitation grants for schools to enhance teaching and learning in schools. So looking at all these array of socially related interventions, just to ensure that kids are in school and are retained in school, it becomes a real challenge when you still need funds to be able to provide ICT logistics in schools. And this is a very critical challenge. We conducted an e-readiness survey in the second cycle institutions in the country in 2009, which also revealed inequitable distribution of ICT resources as a challenge. In fact, there are cases where in quite a number of schools, when you think about the student-computer ratio, it is 500 students sharing a single computer. In fact, student-computer ratios at the school level ranged from a low of 3 to 1, 3 students to 1 computer, to a high of 650 to 1 computer. This needs to be understood, that it has a direct bearing on ICT planning and deployment, because large class sizes and large student enrollment are significant factors that contribute to the excessive pressure that will be brought to bear on the ICT facilities and equipment. There are cases where we have, small computer labs, particularly in the rural communities, where quite a number of them have less than 10 seats. In other words, computers to serve not more than 10 students at a time. And of course, most of these computers are refurbished or unreliable PCs. There is also the underdeveloped infrastructure and lack of reliable electricity, particularly in the rural areas, and limited internet access. The issue of underdeveloped digital content base for use in schools remains another challenge. Mr. Chair, it is significant also to mention that realizing these enormous challenges confronting us in our attempt to deploy ICTs in education, there was the need to make choices, technology options that would best help us to achieve our policy goals. And this is where we came into contact with N computing as a thin client solution. It's already been described by the MD of N computing. Now, we deployed this as a pilot in 20 senior high schools, each supporting 44 simultaneous users. So you would have in a lab 4 main computers, then with 40 virtual desktops. Now, so overall, there are advantages in such a deployment. And Mr. Chairman, let me just take a couple of minutes to just mention some of the results that we have had as a result of this deployment. We realized that student access to ICT resources has doubled. Then there is the reduced maintenance and management costs. There are shorter periods for maintenance and technical support because essentially you are looking at just 4 PCs in a 44-seater lab. Then significantly, there is reduced cost or consumption of electricity or power. We have seen significant progress. Countrywide, the student-computer ratio has been 42:1. And in our special survey that we conducted in the 20 schools where we did the pilot, they also had a similar ratio of one unreliable computer for 42 students. Now, indeed, as I mentioned earlier, in one particular school, there were 650 students sharing one computer. In fact, in that school, they had doubled down about 1,300 students, and they had only 2 computers. So the mathematics is your simple guess. Then there are also situations where the number of the access to ICT facilities have more than multiplied. I mean, in the sense that it's about 10 times the figure, where previously we had just 4 computers, 4 to 6 computers, serving a whole class or the whole school. And then now, with a 44-seater system, I mean, the ratio drastically reduces. Now, so since the deployment of the N computing thin client solution about 10 months ago, we are indeed convinced that we are on the path to reducing the weight of the challenges confronting us in bringing about the needed transformation in our educational system through the integration of appropriate technology. This therefore puts us in a good stead to encourage others and on how worthwhile it might be to consider various thin client solutions to achieve policy objectives. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end by stating that we are now getting partners who have started supporting our ICT deployment plans for education in Ghana, because they realize that it's possible to spend just some amount of money and be able to reach many more students. So we now have the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology working through, in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, working on the Better Ghana ICT project, and then also the Ministry of Communications working on the Schools Connectivity project through 2 of their main agencies. the Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communications, GIFEC, and then the National Information Technology Agency, NITA. Indeed, for us in Ghana, we believe that we are making a breakthrough in achieving the policy objectives through the choice of technology options that provide realistic benefits worth sharing to those who also aim at similar goals. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for your attention.